Before we start again, I will read the hadith. مسلسل بالأولية الراحمون يرحمهم الرحمن تبارك وتعالى يرحم من في الأرض يرحمكم من في السماء وفي رواية يرحموا ترحم. We've read Alhamdulillah 20 hadith. The first 11 hadith were connected to Kitabul Buyur, transactions, lending, muamalat. We mentioned that there is no harm in acquiring wealth in halal way, but the niyyat and intention is what matters. Intention should be right. If your intention is right, no harm. If your intention is wrong and bad, then that's what matters. Also, Imam Bukhari said, "Man ahabba al-basta fi rizqi." If you like to have a lot of money, there's no problem in there. If you can have a lot of money. And the hadith, "Man ahabba yubsata lahu fi rizqihi falyasil rahimahu." Also, tijarat is the best. Over here, Sheikh Yunus Sahib also talked about afzalul makasib. What is the best way of earning money? Some ulama said, "At-tijarat thumma az-zara'at thumma as-sana'at." Business, farming, and some skilled work. And then comes ijara, job, mazduri. And others said, "Az-zara'a thumma at-tijara, thumma as-sana'a thumma al-ijara." And they give the deal for that. Two opinions are there. Most ulama say tijarat is the best. So even if you have a job, do some tijarat on one side little bit. And slowly, even if you lose your job or something, you still got your business. Then we went on to some masail about dayn. When explaining the meaning of bay', do you remember what I said in the bay'? Mubadalatul mal bil mal bil tarazi. Exchanging mal with mutual agreement. Now remember one point to note over here. That Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created the world. Allah created the goods and everything that benefits us. Now, to exchange goods with goods, how do we exchange it? For example, one person is a farmer, he's got lots of harvest. Another person is a cloth merchant, he's got lots of clothes. Now, the farmer wants clothes and the clothes merchant wants harvest, wheat, barley. How do we exchange that? One way is that he gives him clothes and the other person gives him wheat. But he doesn't want that much wheat, but the person wants clothes. Or the farmers got enough clothes, he doesn't want clothes. So how do we go around it? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created two things, placed them in the earth, gold and silver. And he said, this is the medium. The medium for exchanging those things. Now, gold and silver themselves don't have value. Value is of the goods. The clothes, they can be expensive, they can be cheap. The wheat, it can have the value up and down. The khajur, Ajwa khajur will be more expensive, kalmi will be cheap, and barni will be more cheap. So is the commodity, the goods which the value of which go up and down. The gold and silver in the middle, its value should not go up and down. It is something or other means for purchasing that stuff. So whether it's 10 pounds or 100 pounds or 1,000 pounds, the value is for that stuff. Now, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, one is ayn, the other is arth. The fuqaha explained from Quran Hadith. One is ayn, the other is arth. Ayn is all the goods, products. And no. Ain is the gold and silver, and araz are the saman, the commodities and the goods. So we use this. So the cloth seller, if he wants wheat, he'll give him gold or silver money and take the wheat from him. And the farmer, if he wants clothes, he will use that gold or silver and pay for the cloth and buy the cloth from him. So the money is just for the intermediate. Now, if we make money our main object and we increase it or decrease it in value, then that would be wrong. Because it's not something of value. Value is of the other stuff. So what's happening today in finance is that people have made the money their object. And for finance, they go into various ways. Some people go into interest, some people gambling, some people other stuff, I don't know what, shares, and then we get lots of other means of maybe buying and selling. We get questions regarding drop shipping, forex trading, and these masail. In many cases, a person doesn't get the product to himself, he's not delivered to it. He just, passes from one to the other and he makes money in the middle. So Sharia says when you get that from, you shouldn't do that. If you buy something and you want to sell it on, it should be in your hand. You should take it in your qabza first. And when it's in your possession, then you should sell it. Now, qabza can be haqiqi or hukmi. Haqiqi is really, it comes to your place, your shop or your warehouse, your godam, and then you sell it from there. And hukmi can be someone else who is your wakil or representative can take it for you. And from there, he can give it to the one whom you sell it to. That's your hukmi qabza because he's your representative. But if nothing, no qabza of haqiqi or hukmi, and you just pass it from one place to the other, you make your money in the middle, Sharia will say, no, that's not allowed. There's gharar in there. There could be deception, there could be things going wrong. Sharia says, no, this type of money making schemes will not be allowed. And then the other schemes of maybe shares and then bitcoins. Bitcoin is Hawaii fire. Hawaii fire, we don't know, there's no tangible thing there. You can't purchase anything with Bitcoin. It's just making money, it fluctuates up and down. Allah knows who's doing what and who's behind it. People making money and the awam, general public, are falling for the trap. So khulasa is what we said in the beginning. The main value is for the goods and the products. Gold and silver is just a medium. We should not make gold and silver our main object and spend our life behind increasing our money and amassing wealth. The hadith said, "Ad-dunya daru man la dara lahu, wa malu man la mala lahu, wa laha yajma'u man la aqla lahu." Dunya is the abode of the one who has no abode, and the mal of the one who has no mal. And for dunya, such people gather and amass who have no intelligence. If you had intelligence, you would have used that wealth for good purposes, for using and having a nice life, and also for sending it forth in akhirat, sadaqah, khairat, making your jannah. That is why you should take the dunya for. Otherwise, gathering dunya for dunya is not something good. What we need is zuhd and qana'at in us. When you understand this point, you will understand many masail which are related to finance. Inshallah, in 15 minutes, we'll have Maulana Zubair Sahab, who is in the finance sector, and he will address us for a few minutes, explaining how the finance system works. Before that, we'll cover some hadiths over here. Open hadith number 21. باب إذا وجد ماله عند مفلس في البيع والقرض والوديعة فهو أحق به. First hadith.
أنه سمع أبا هريرة رضي الله عنه يقول قال رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم وقال سمعت رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم يقول من أدرك ماله بعينه عند رجل أو إنسان قد أفلس فهو أحق به من غيره Allah's Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, if a man finds his very things with a bankrupt person, he has more right to take them back from it than anyone else.
The hadith itself says, whoever finds his mal bi'aynihi, exactly in the same condition with a person who has become bankrupt, then he deserves it more than others. Now, people will say this hadith is from Bukhari, we practice on it. So if I gave you something and you became bankrupt and I found your wallet, you got £1,000 in there, so I take your credit card and drain your account out. I can do that. That's what you will understand from here. But that's not the way things work. Look at the chapter Imam Bukhari has conducted on it. Imam Bukhari, second one, just the backward. باب إذا وجد ماله عند مفلس في البيع والقرض والوديعة. Imam Bukhari mentioned three things: في البيع والقرض والوديعة. Hazrat Shaykh Yunus said Imam Bukhari gathered three masail in one sentence. First mas'ala, let's take it, is of wadi'at. Wadi'at means amanat. Amanat, some trust which was kept with you. Now, if you are given permission to use that amanat, then it's called wadi'at. But if you're not given permission to use it, then it's amanat. Do you understand? I give you £1,000, look after it. Don't use it, then it's amanat. But if you say, can I use it if I need to? And I say, okay, you have permission to use it. That's wadi'at. Do you understand both words? Now, amanat mein zamanat nahi hai. Wadi'at mein zamanat hai. In amanat, there is no zamanat. If that £1,000 was given as amanat just for safekeeping, no ijazat to use it, and it got destroyed, there was a fire, and the whole house was burnt, the £1,000 was burnt, then you're not zamin for it. But if I had given you permission to use it as a wadiyat, and you used it for business purpose or whatever, then you are zamin. If you got caught fire, if your business property got fire, and everything got destroyed, that does not absolve your duty. You still have to give me back my £1,000. Do you understand the difference between amanat and wadiyat? In amanat, there is no zamanat, but in wadiyat, there is zamanat. Now, if I had given you £1,000 as amanat, and you kept it in your house, but then you were made bankrupt by the qazi, judge. But I came to your house secretly at night, and I went into that room, and I found that exact envelope I had given you with my writings on it. So I can secretly take it. It's my money. فَهُوَ حَقُّ بِهِ. That person who found his property exactly as it was, then in wadiyat, you are haqq. You deserve it more because it's your money, it's only amanat. Take it. You don't need to tell him. You can tell him afterwards. Number two, second masla is bay'ah. You bought something from me for £1,000. For example, iPhone 11. And then you hadn't paid me yet. And something happened, your case was brought to the Qazi judge, and the Qazi made you bankrupt. But you still got my phone. Now you came to the masjid, you put your phone down on the floor for janazah or namaz, and I saw it. I sold it to you, you hadn't paid it yet, and I found that good, that stuff, as it was. Can I take it or not? And Imam Bukhari say, if it's bi'aynihi, that product, that good, yes, you can take it. But Imam Abu Hanifa rahmatullahi alayhi says no. Number two, that the borrower, the person in debt, who's being made bankrupt, the Qazi will take all his possessions, gather them, and sell them in the market, and then he will distribute that whatever he gets by way of percentage among the creditors. You remember the example I gave you, NatWest, Barclays Bank, and the Bank of Scotland, 50%, 25%, 25%. So the phone will also be taken by the Qazi, along with other stuff, cash, whatever has in bank, and it will all be collected, given out, sold, and it will be divided equally between the creditors. In other words, in Bayr, if I was to find that phone, then I'm not ahaq with it. I am uswatun lil ghurama. I'm equal with other creditors. And the third masla is about qars. If I had given you qars and loan, and you did not use that loan, £1,000 loan I gave you, you had kept it, and I found that qars exactly as I had given you. Now you've become bankrupt. What's the masla in there? Imam Shafi'i, Imam Ahmad, rahmatullahi alayhima say that it's like wadi'at, you can take it. It's yours. And in Bay'ah as well, take it. In other words, Imam Shafi'i, Imam Ahmad, Imam Bukhari say in all three maslas, you deserve it. But Imam Abu Hanifa and Imam Malik said no, in qars as well, that person will be equal with other creditors. So, what do we understand from there? That Imam Abu Hanifa says this hadith, فَهُوَ أَحَقُّ بِهِ, is for whom? For the case of amanat, but only for amanat. If it's for bay'ah or for qars, then you can't take it. You will be equal with other creditors. It will be distributed by way of percentage. So the meaning of this hadith, فَهُوَ أَحَقُّ بِهِ مِنْ غَيْرِهِ, is with regards to مَا لَهُ بِعَيْنِهِ. بِعَيْنِهِ is in amanat, wadi'ah, because that is بِعَيْنِهِ mal. And Shariah regards it as that. This is the mas'ala. Now, with regards to dain, we will understand from here, we have to be very particular about it. Try and pay off our debt to the best of our ability. Don't keep anything on your shoulders. Give it as quickly as you can. You don't know when you're going to become muflis or bankrupt or anything. So anything could happen. So pay off your debt as quickly as possible. Chaliye.
عن جابر رضي الله عنه قال أصيب عبد الله وترك عيالا ودينا فطلبت إلى أصحاب الدين أن يضعوا بعض من دينه فأبوا فأتيت النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم فاستشفعت به عليهم فأبوا فقال صنف تمرك كل شيء منه على جبته
على
حيته إذ قبل زيد على حدة واللين على حدة والعجلة على حدة ثم أحضره حتى آتيك ففعلت ثم جاء صلى الله عليه وسلم فقعد عليه وكان لكل رجل حتى استوفى وبقي التمر كما هو كأنه لم يمسه.
Okay, I'll explain that later. One chapter over here is Imam Bukhari is mentioned, which is of importance. So I'll mention it. باب إذا أقرضه إلى أجل مسمى أو أجله في البيع. When a person gives qars for a fixed time or gives respite in transaction. Two mas'alas Imam Bukhari has mentioned there. First mas'ala is إذا أقرضه إلى أجل مسمى. I give you qars for 1 year. So is that 1 year lazim or not? Imam Abu Hanifa rahmatullah says that 1 year is not lazim. If I need it after 2 months, even 1 month, 1 week, I have the right to demand it from you. So the 1 year limit which I fixed is not lazim, because this is just a promise, wa'dah. And ifai wa'da is mustahab, no wajib. So it might happen that I feel the need for my money. I need it now. I bought a house and I was short of the 10,000 pounds. So I said, though I lend it to you for 1 year, but I'm in need of it now. I have to pay for my house. Please give me my 10,000 pounds back. You have to give it back if the person asks for it instantly. So that limit is not necessary. Ibrahim Nakhai is also of the same opinion. Number two, Imam Malik rahmatullahi alayhi's research was لم يكن له الأخذ قبل حلول الأجل. The person does not have the right to demand for it before the term ends. So you gave me time of 1 year, you'll have to wait for 1 year. You can't ask for it before that. This is Maliki's opinion. But Hanafiya said, no, it's your money, you can ask for it anytime you want. And I have to give you it back. This is one mas'ala. إِذَا أَخْرَضَهُ إِلَىٰ أَجَلٍ مُسَمًّى. إِلَىٰ أَجَلٍ مُسَمًّى. Another point to note over here. If you give qars to someone or if you take qars from someone, what should you do? Write it down. And write the payment time as well. Date. 1 year, 2 years, 5 years. These days, many people give qars to relatives, friends, but they don't write it down. Number one. And they don't fix a time for it. Right? If a time is fixed, then the person has some pressure on his head. I have to pay it back before this time. So he'll work for it. He won't go on holidays. He won't buy a new mobile phone. He won't buy a new car. He won't buy new furniture. Because he knows I have to pay my qars. So in a qars, what you're supposed to do is, write a transaction and put the time limit on it. This is ila ajalin musamman. Even Quran said this. Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu idha tadayantum bidaynin ila ajalin musamman. Ajalin musamman, fixed time. Faktubuhu, write it down. This is one mas'ala. Number two mas'ala is ajjalahu fil bay'i. A person gives time in bay' and transaction. Meaning, I bought some good from you and I said, I don't have the money now, I'll pay you later. And you said, all right, when? I said, I'll pay you next month, on the 15th of next month. And you said, all right. So in bay', you have to keep your word because it's a transaction. So you can't ask me for payment before the 15th of next month. Do you understand the difference? First was qars, then you can ask for it before the fixed time. Second is bay', transaction, and in transaction you cannot ask for it before the time arrives. Now, Imam Bukhari rahmatullahi mentioned this. We'll go over it of the hadith which we've just read. And this hadith which we've just read, finish that chapter now. Next chapter, Babu Shafa'ati fi wad'i dayn. Imam Bukhari has brought this hadith in Babu Shafa'at fi wad'i dayn. Doing sifarish and interceding and speaking up for someone with regards to the debt. Imam Bukhari's aim is to say that jaiz. It is jaiz. You can't speak up for someone that way. Let him off, give him more time, reduce his debt. It's good. One hadith said, Ishfa'u faltujaru wal yaqdillahu ala lisani nabiyhi ma sha. Do sifarish, you will be rewarded. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will decide upon the tongue of his prophet however he wills. So the word is ishfa'u faltujaru. In any sifarish, any intercession, sometimes shafa'at is for nikah, shadi. You say to someone, by this boy is nice, give your daughter to him. This is sifarish. Hadith said, afdalu shafa'at an yushfa' bayna ithnayn fi nikah. The most virtuous sifarish is when you do sifarish in nikah, muamla. So over here, sifarish with regards to reducing debt is also good. And the hadith over here is Hadith of Jabir radiallahu anhu. We've read that hadith before. Do you remember the hadith? When the Prophet ﷺ came and spoke to the creditors that take from Jabir whatever he's got and let him off. And they said, no, we want our haqq. And Prophet ﷺ said, okay, we'll give you your haqq. And next day, he prayed and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, helped in repayment of all the debt of Hazrat Jabir radiallahu anhu. Go to the next hadith. No, but the next hadith we can skip it because it's got nothing to do with Dain. It's some other matter. Chaliye, go to hadith 24. Maulana sahab, is Maulana Zubair on? Walaikum salam. Why is Maulana Musa is checking on? You got a phone in? भाई तुम ये काम करो इतने में हम अपना काम करते हैं मौली ब्रेक पढ़ते रहो मौली मूसा कहें बस तब बस कर लेना
عن المغيرة بن شعبة رضي الله عنه قال قال النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم إن الله حرم عليكم عقوق الأمهات ووأد البنات ومناعوهات وكره لكم قيل وقال وكثرة السؤال وإضاعة المال. Prophet صلى الله عليه وسلم said Allah forbidden for you to be undutiful to your mothers, to bury your daughters alive, to not to pay the rights of the others, and to beg of men. And Allah has hated for you vain, useless talk, or that you talk too much about others, to ask too many questions, and to waste their wealth.
This hadith is in the chapter Babu ma yunha anhu min ida'atil mal. That which is prohibited with regards to wastage of wealth. Now, you shouldn't waste your money. How would you waste your money? Bolo? Fuzul kharji, extravagance, spending beyond your limits, right? You know, our Buddhas, they used to say some nice stuff. They used to say, "Bhai, जितनी चादर हो उतने ही पाँव फैलाओ, उससे ज्यादा नहीं, वरना ठंडी लगेगी." Spread your legs to the size of your blanket. If you stretch them more, then your feet will get cold. They used to say, if you have 16 annas, pencils, annas they used to call, then spend 12 annas and save 4 annas for your emergency. If you go 16 and you spend 20, where you get the 4 annas from? So look after your wealth, don't waste it, protect it. Sufyan Thawri Rahmatullah used to say that in the previous eras, now remember Sufyan is of the 2nd century, and he said the Salaf Salihin Sahaba used to dislike wealth. But in this day and age, if someone has wealth, he should look after it. He should do some business and trade in it and protect it. Because this is a time when if a person becomes poor, the first thing he will sell is his deen. He'll go sell his deen to get money, to remove that poverty. So if you have money, then look after your money. Don't waste it. Don't overspend it. Save it. Do something good with it. This is what's trying to say. And Imam Bukhari has quoted, "Wallahu la yuhibbul fasad, la yuslihu amal al-mufsidin ila akhirih." وَالْحَجْرِ فِي ذَلِكَ وَمَا يُنْهَى عَنِ الْخِدَاعِ, and putting restrictions with regards to it, and khida' and deception is not allowed. The hadith brought over here, we discussed this hadith last week, so you can listen to it. Last week I explained it. Allah has forbidden for you uquq al-ummahat, hurting, abusing your mothers, wa'd al-banat, burying daughters alive, wa man'awahat. Man'awahat, you refuse others, you ask from them. This is man'un wahat. That you don't give anything to anyone, you're always begging from other people. This is man'a wahat. And kariha lakum qila wa qal. 3 things dislike. Kilo qal. Kilo qal means rumors, passing on rumors. Whatever you hear, you pass it on without checking it. It's kilo qal. So and so said this. It was said. I heard this somewhere. Someone was saying this. Who was saying it? What's the source of it? Where did it come from? WhatsApp is the biggest spreader of rumors. And conspiracy theories and rumors and Allah knows what, blah, 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 blah. So don't go blah, blah, blah on WhatsApp and social media. And kasrat as-su'al, excessive questioning. It has different meanings. I explained last week. Ida'atul mal. This is the point Imam Bukhari wants over here. Wastage of wealth is makruh, disliked. Okay, I'll give myself a break. I'll put Maulana Zubair Sahab on for a few minutes. Bulao ji Maulana Zubair. Maulana Zubair Sahab. Assalamu alaikum. हाँ कैसे हो ठीक हो हाँ अगर नहीं हुई तो कम हुआ नहीं मुझे बात करो let it talk मौलाना साहब how you going to explain finance to us quickly भाई इसमें फोटो नहीं नजर आ रहा उनका
क्या हो रहा है
हाँ बोलो 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 अल्लाह अरे बुखारी से तो कम होगी तुझे सही पकड़ बस
देखो
पकड़े हो और भाई लोग
Assalamu alaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Jazakallah khair. You asked me to, I'm not worthy to do this presentation, but since you asked, I have to apply. And the time I have, inshallah, I will try to explain, very briefly regarding some of the crucial points regarding finance, generally finance. And what you're teaching, subhanAllah, is what we should be doing in Islamic finance or in finance general. What I will be talking about, few things that we should not be doing. So that's the aim, inshallah, within 15 minutes, that's the beginning. Finance is something that is a very important and integral part of our society, our existence. And like it or not, finance affects everyone. And every one of us, it affects as individuals, it affects our society, it affects our families, it affects our nation, and it affects our ummah. And finance is something, when I say finance, I mean trade, buying, selling, everything as mentioned in the Hadith, like borrowing, lending, all these aspects, investments, fund management, crowdfunding, all these things to do with money is all included in finance. So when I say finance, I mean all those items and all those things. So finance is a very, very important part of our lives, and it dictates how we behave. For example, finance dictates how much your rent should be. When you go to the shop and buy a pint of milk, finance dictates how much you should be paying for that pint of milk. So finance is without doubt, a very important part of our lives. And indeed, you've read and you've heard that Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he was also involved in finance, in trade finance, and he was a highly successful one, a highly successful businessman. Not only because he was Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he was the leader of mankind, and Allah's focus and attention was upon him, but Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he traded fairly. He taught us how to trade in a fair way, in an honest way, in a just way. And because of these rules, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam became extremely successful. And through Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala established the rules of finance for the Muslim Ummah. Allah and Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam and Islam generally taught us how to trade, how to buy, how to sell. When you lend to someone, how to lend. What are the terms that you need to negotiate? What should you do? You should write it down. You should have witnesses. So all these rules, intricate rules, were introduced into finance. And for a while, alhamdulillah, Islam flourished in finance. And Islam became, you've seen the examples, for example, in Islamic Spain, it became the center of commerce and trade and finance. So it's because of Islam that finance flourished. However, unfortunately, there were people who took these rules regarding musharaka, have joint partnership, rules regarding ijara, renting, rules regarding lending and borrowing. All these rules, people took it and they manipulated these rules. They introduced all evil practices, and they changed the whole structure of finance. Whereas before, Rasulullah ﷺ introduced rules into finance, and the objective of these rules were to bring happiness. It was to protect our faith. It was to protect our property. It was to protect our posterity. So all these are the objectives of finance. Finance were introduced to protect the poor, to make life easier for the individuals who were in a very difficult situation, people who were struggling to have a shelter over the roof. Finance was there to make life easy for them. However, what happened later was people changed these rules and introduced all these evil rules, and it became an item where it was there to make other people's life difficult. Where Islam introduced to make people's life easier, these modern rules, Islamic finance rules, were introduced to make people's life more difficult. It was there to make the rich richer and the poor poorer. And it became so evil in practices. And one of the main culprits in all this were banks. Banks was the main element through which people were taking advantage, or people were exploiting the vulnerable. Through banks, they were exploiting the weak and the poor. And the rich were making more and more money, and the poor were getting poorer and poorer and poorer. And one of the things banks used to do this was interest. Now, interest is such a horrible, manipulating, oppressive tool that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala declares war. Him and his Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam declare war on the person who promotes and who uses interest or usury. Usually interest, they're both the same thing. I'll mention that later. They're both the same thing. Some people differentiate between usually and interest, and usually something that has a large amount of interest, and interest is something small which is acceptable. But regardless, in Islam, doesn't matter if it's a penny of interest, it's haram. It's completely haram. So we don't distinguish between usually or interest. But the banks use interest to become extreme rich. Banks were the main culprit. Now, what do they do and how do they do it? I don't think I have enough time. I wish I had to explain to you what the tools were they used to manipulate, to take advantage of us. But I'll just give you one or two examples of what the things that the banks do and how they exploited the rules, the rules of Islamic finance and trade, and for their advantage, so that they can become richer. You see, what the banks do, the main character of a bank is to lend. Any bank that doesn't have the capability to lend is not a bank. It can't survive. So bank needs to lend money. So when they lend money to others, they make money from it. What they do is that they will lend 100 million to someone, and in return they will ask that person or that organization to pay back double. They'll say that they have to pay with 10% or 20% or 1%, whatever interest they pay back. They have to pay back with interest. And the interest is the bank's income. Without that income, the bank cannot survive. But first of all, in order to lend, in order to give money to organizations and individuals, the bank needs money itself. So where does that money come from? It comes from me and you. The bank gets the money from me and you. So when we actually go to a bank and we have to deposit our bank, we have to open an account, and all the money that we receive goes into the bank. What do you think the bank does with that money? Saves it for you? Looks after it for you? No. The bank will take that money and collect all the other money that they've collected from individuals, me and you, and big organizations, and they have a facility where they lend to others. So they'll have agreements with other banks. So for example, Lloyds Bank and NatWest Bank. So NatWest Bank needs some money. Lloyds Bank will say, oh, we have some money, here's some money that we can lend to you, you can give it back to us tomorrow, or make sure it's 20%, 30% interest when you pay back. So that way the Lloyds Bank makes a lot of money from that. That's one way of making money. Another way would be the bank, for example, he has collected lots of money from individuals and organizations, so he has, say, £1 billion in his account. So along comes a company that manufactures weapons, and it needs money to buy material so it can create or it can make its material. So it comes to the bank, and the bank will say, okay, yeah, we have 1 billion, we know you, you are a good customer, here's 1 billion, go and make your weapons. And think about this. They give the 1 billion to the customer, and the customer goes away and is making these weapons. Now he needs to sell. There's a buyer in the Middle East, for example. There's a buyer who wants to buy weapons, he needs weapons, but he doesn't have the money to buy weapons. So he comes to the bank and says to the bank, I need money to buy some weapons. Can you please give me some money? The bank will say, yes, of course. He has some money, you can go and buy the weapons. So the person who wants to, or the organization wants to buy the weapons, goes to the weapons manufacturer, gives them the money, takes the weapon. The manufacturer gets the money, pays it to the bank. But the customer also is paying to the bank with interest, and huge amounts of interest. So here, the bank is a winner. It is only a win-win situation for the bank. And on top of that, if the manufacturer misses his deadline on paying back, it will just increase. It will increase his interest rates or increase penalties. And the more the organization or the manufacturer delays, the more the bank makes money. Now this is why interest is haram, completely haram. It's literally like, if you're talking about individuals, when you go to a bank and say, can I borrow some money? I need to buy a car. I need £5,000. So the bank says, yeah, here's £5,000, but when you pay back, you make sure you pay back £8,000, pay in 5 years' time, over 5 years. So you're trying to pay this money back to the bank, and then you fall into some difficulty because you have some issues with your employment, you have no money coming in. And so you explain to the bank, I can't pay you this month because I don't have any money. The bank will say, we don't care, here's more interest, here's another fight. And they pile up the interest. This individual who borrowed money to buy a car is extremely stressed. First of all, they can't get any money, and now the bank is piling up on interest. Try to imagine what difficulty this person is going through. But Islam said if somebody is in difficulty, you lend him the money. Lend him the money. If he can't pay back on time, be merciful, be lenient, be kind. As relevant to the Hadith, where you have to be generous, be forgiving, let go. Allah will reward you. But here, you can't pay the bank. You say, we don't care, we'll make more money. And subhanAllah, it's simply like sucking the blood out of the individual. And that's why the punishment is in the hereafter, a person who receives interest be swimming in a pool of blood is because it's literally like sucking the life out, the blood out of an individual. Furthermore, what these banks do is that they, for example, this is a very quick example before I finish, then I can pass it back to you. But here's an example how things went wrong, drastically wrong with the financial system. The financial system, they were being too greedy. There were so many scams, there were so many looting, cheating, lying going on. People were borrowing money and they were running off, vanishing from existence. The banks couldn't get the money back. Banks were lending and then charging high interest, putting people into difficulty, repossessing their property. So much was going on that they had to introduce an organization to control and curb the behavior of these institutions. So along came the Financial Services Authority. So they created a new institution, and this institution, it laid down the rules and regulations, how to trade, what to do, and some of these rules, tables from Islam, and they put some rules and put. They still had that interest element in. They couldn't go away from it. They couldn't leave it. And so they began to control all the financial systems, but still things went wrong. Because these were the rules that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala advised to follow. These are not the rules that Rasulullah followed. They had interest in it. And because of this, they went further on. So back in 2008, there was a financial crisis. Some of you may remember. There was a financial crisis. What happened? Very briefly. What happened was, in America, these banks, in America, they were giving money out to people to buy property. They were giving them out willy-nilly. They weren't checking on the individual if they were able to pay back or not. They were just giving out money. They gave out billions of money to people to buy houses. Now, the bank has given up billions to so many people. There's a debt that's owed to the bank in America. So, for example, American banks gave out $1 million to all the clients in America. Now, the clients in America, they owe $1 billion to the Bank of America. Now, the Bank of America, it has a debt, a book of debt worth £1 billion. So what they did, they came to England and they told a bank in England, look, we have a debt of 1 billion. These customers in America, they owe us $1 billion. They're going to pay in 10 or 50 years' time, but we need some money immediately. Why don't you buy the debt? Buy the debt for $500 million. And these people will pay you $1 billion in 10 years' time or 20 years' time, you'll get the money. But you can give us $500 million because we need the money now. So the bank in England gave $500 million to the Bank of America. And Bank of America got $500 million cash. Cash is king. So they have $500 million of cash, and the bank in England is rubbing their hands, oh, we're going to get £1 billion from the customers in America. Guess what happened? The people in America couldn't afford to pay back. They had no money to pay back. These companies, these banks in England, weren't getting their money back. And the properties weren't worth it. So these banks in England, they paid $500 million to the Bank of America. They have no money themselves. So when customers came to take the money out, they had no money. And that's how there was a ripple effect, and it affected all institutions, and there was a financial crash. This is because Islam doesn't allow you to trade in debt. You can't buy and sell debt in the manner they have done by making more money. These banks, they have to be controlled, they have to be maintained. The English system, the English law have created many other organizations. There's a new organization called the FCA now, so it's called the Financial Conduct Authority. And with that, there's another organization called the PRA, Prudential Regulation Authority. They have created so many organizations to control the behavior of these banks. So these banks, they are one track minded. They just want to make money out of money, money out of money, which is completely haram. Cannot make money out of money. Like I mentioned, there has to be commodities. Money is just a mode of exchange. There has to be one commodity being exchanged with another commodity, and there are the rules that these commodities. Money is simply a mode of exchange. Money itself has no intrinsic value. It has no intrinsic value. It's just a mode of exchange. What we want. But banks, they made the money a commodity. They made the money something that has value. And they're using this money to make money. And this is extremely burdensome on the poor and the weak and the vulnerable. And this is exactly what it's designed to do. It's actually designed to take advantage of poor countries. If you think on a global scale, UK, they lend money to India or Pakistan or Bangladesh, say £1 million, and then they apply interest on that. Now the poor country, Bangladesh or Pakistan, they can't pay the money back. They are still struggling to pay the interest. They get the actual £1 million which they borrowed. They're still struggling to pay the interest. And interest is just increasing and increasing, and the country is getting poorer and poorer. And these people in the UK are rubbing their hands and they're getting more money and more money. So this is what the obsession is. This is why interest is seen with a very negative way in Islam, and it's completely haram. Even a penny of interest is haram. We Muslims, there was a time when we used to set the rules and others used to follow. We have reached a point where others set the rules and we are following their rules. We have become so involved in this interest-based institution. We have to find a way. We have to use the rules that taught by Rasulullah and implement them in our activities, in our financial activities. We have to learn about the financial system. We have to know how these work, how they operate. Remove the badness or the evilness from these transactions and put the beautiful rules of Islam into this transaction. And then you will see some success, you will see peace, you will see happiness, and you will see that finance is doing its job, protecting our faith, protecting our family, protecting our life and our prosperity. So we need to actually go back and learn what the hadith of Rasulullah taught us, learn from them and implement, apply them to our daily lives and our finance. May Allah give us the tawfiq. I do apologize, I wish I could talk more about these transactions and how they actually work and how to make them halal. Inshallah, some other time, inshallah. How does ijara, how does musharaka, how can you go and get a property from the bank in a halal way? How can you borrow money or how can you lend money in a halal way which doesn't involve interest, but at the same time somebody is making a profit? There's nothing, as I just mentioned, there's nothing against making a profit. There's nothing against becoming rich. There's nothing wrong becoming wealthy as long as it's done in a halal way, according to the Sharia. But where we need to be careful is where interest comes in. And in fact, the interest of so many products, and all of them are based on interest. For example, all these derivatives, derivatives are they're kind of structured where they know that money sometimes value increases and decreases. So just to make sure the people who are lending money don't lose out, there's something called derivatives, and they make sure that they can make more money back. And it's a very complex and very difficult structures that they use. There's other things like futures and options and all these things that's used interest-based to make money out of money. And this is Allah. You cannot make money out of money. May Allah give me and you the tawfiq. May Allah bring back Islamic values amongst these financial institutions. May Allah allow the Muslims to understand, because many Muslims are rich, but Allah did not give them wisdom, so they don't use the money in the correct manner. So may Allah give Muslims the wisdom to learn and understand the Islamic values, the Islamic finance values, and implement them in our financial structures.
Jazakallah, Muhammad Zubair sir. Thank you so much. That was so nice, mashallah. Very clear, very self-explanatory. May Allah reward you, accept your efforts. Maulana sir, what are you doing at the moment? अभी क्या कर रहे हैं आप? Finance में कहाँ काम कर रहे हैं?
So, I'm working in London. I'm working for an insurance company, which we were trying to provide Islamic insurance to Islamic banks across the world. So, for example, Nizam Bank in Pakistan, Abu Dhabi Bank in Abu Dhabi. So, we try to insure those banks in a halal way. This is another thing that's very important. It's required, but it should be done in a halal way where companies are not making money out of insurance premiums. So we're doing that,
establishing some Islamic system of insurance, inshallah. Working with bank in Pakistan and bank in Abu Dhabi. He is in London working in the finance sector, mashallah. So that's why he's got so much experience. Jazakallah, Maulana sir, thank you very much. हम अपनी हदीसें जल्दी पूरी कर लेते हैं. Maulana Ibrahim sir, चलो आ जाओ. When Maulana sir was talking about that, I remember something nice about interest. We could have talked a little bit about interest as well. Once, some Bodia white man, he had done some work in that room, so he came to take his money. So we were talking, so we paid him his money. No, take this off. Leave that off. So whilst he was going, I was escorting him to the car, and he started talking about this interest. And I said, the example of the interest which bank give is like, when there is sunshine, they offer you an umbrella. As soon as it starts to rain, they give my umbrella back. The banks do not give loan to poor people. They only give loan to rich people. And as soon as they get into a little bit of difficulty, they say, no, we want our money back. And that is the case. And with regards to interest, Maulana Zubair Sahib mentioned that whether it's little or more, it's still interest. And you remember when we talked in the morning, Imam Bukhari said, two babs, he said, Akilul riba and Mukilul riba. The one who takes riba and the one who pays riba, both wrong. I remember, I was in Canada, and one of my friends, he said, I once went to the bank and I talked to the deputy manager for something, and afterwards, when everything finished, we were sitting, and I said to the deputy manager that, you give out this interest-based mortgage. Why don't you work some system out which is Islamic? Like in some of the Arabian countries, what they do is they have this house, they build it, and it's worth 100,000. And they say to the buyer, if you pay cash, you can take it for 100,000. But if you are going to pay over a period, then it will cost you 150,000. So in that majlis, they finalize the transaction. And if he says, I'll pay you 150,000 over 10 years, that's allowed. This is my pen. If I was to sell you, and I say you can buy it for £1 if you pay now, but if you're going to pay me after 1 month, you have to pay 150. Now Sharia says, if you decide in that majlis, then you're allowed. There's no harm in it. So he said, why don't you do that? This is allowed in our Islamic Sharia. So the deputy manager said, yeah, you're right, we could do this. Let me talk to my manager and then get back to you. This is possible. Rather than charging interest, we fix a price and we divide it over a period of 10 years, 15 years. So after a few days, he phoned back and he said that, we thought about it, it was a nice idea, but then we thought that your people are already paying us interest. Why should we go through all the hassle? Do you get it? That Muslims are paying us interest. Why should we do that? And you're paying, you might as well keep taking it. If all the Muslims got together and say we're not paying mortgage, bring out some situation for us, the banks will have to bring situation. But we are the ones who are lazy. We have to blame. This is mukilul riba. This is why wa'id and warning is for both. Akilul riba, mukilul riba, both same. Even though that person is taking, consuming, he's sucking the blood of people, and this person is taking, but he's also sinful because he is part and parcel of that interest society.
Student loans is that?
One second. Quran said, La tadhlimuna wa la tudhlamun. In the ruku. Don't be zalim, don't be mazloom. The one who takes interest is zalim. The one who gives interest is mazloom. Don't be zalim, don't be mazloom. Rizwan Bhai is itching for a question of student loan. What about student loan? Well, find some way of solution.
The government actually said we can introduce an Islamic version of student loans.
Acha.
But like what you said, Hasrat, because people are already taking it.
Already taking it. That's the point you're trying to make. I thought you were asking me a question. Jazakallah for that point. Very good point. But Rizwan is saying the government did say we're going to introduce Islamic-based student loan. But then they say that Muslim students are already taking it. Why should we bother? Why should we go over all the hassle? So if we have one body, we got together, we said to the government, please help us. Government would help us. But we don't want to be lazy. So it's our fault. Well, you can say that. Don't talk too much. Come on, deliver.
Hazrat, like you were saying, the pen, £1 and then 10 years, £1.50. Is that how the Islamic movement works?
Possible. They might be working like that. That's why they make it halal. That's why Mufti Taqi or whoever made it halal, whatever there is in there. But you have to remember that this Sharia is jais. Right? But the point is, in that majlis of transaction, you have to finalize the deal. Whether it is cash or credit. If it's cash, this car, cash, £10,000. But if you're going to pay it in credit, then you'll have to pay, £15,000. It's just like insurance. If you pay a lump sum, you pay £600. But if you're going to go in over 12 months, then you have to pay so much a month, and in the end you will be paying £720. But you finalized it, then it's allowed. You can pay it in installments. So in the house as well, if you work some way out, that is the way. But do you remember what I said in the morning? What is the best mortgage? Conventional mortgage? Islamic mortgage? No. Private. Private mortgage is the best mortgage. And we also said you don't need to buy a mansion. You can survive on the smallest a house, no problem. We live in a small house. We used to live in small houses. We used to have 15 people in one house. One stair toilet sharing one toilet. Everybody, one bathroom. But we used to survive. In fact, now as well, my Maulana Safwan, his neighbor, Gorias, but I think there's how many? 7, 8 people in that 2-bedroom house with one. And they all share it. And they've grown up. They have 3 kids as well. And there's, I think, 5 adults. But they all live in the same 2-bedroom house. So you have to survive on what you have. What's happened today is every child, even the small baby, wants his own bedroom. Why do you have to give one separate bedroom to every child? Keep them in one room. But these boys and girls should be separate. That's the requirement. When they grow up, they should be in separate rooms. But if there's just boys that sleep in one room, no problem. What's wrong with it? So large families, one room, no problem. Be content with what Allah gives you. Don't go for more. When Allah gives you, then you can have more, inshallah. Anyway, I was going to say riba is of 2 types: riba al-fadl and riba al-nasi'ah. And they were both in the time of pre-Islamic eras, and both were prohibited by Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Riba al-fadl, you read the hadith when the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam mentioned asiyai sitta, 6 things: الذهب بالذهب والفضة بالفضة والتمر بالتمر والملح بالملح والبر بالبر والشعير بالشعير ربا إلا ها وها. That these 6 things, if you exchange, then there will be riba unless you exchange it hand in hand, and mithlam bi mithlin, yadam bi yadin. They are mithlam bi mithlin. Let's take, for example, khajur. Sayyidina Bilal radiallahu anhu brought some very nice khajur. Prophet ﷺ said, this is very nice khajur, where did you buy it from? And he said, I had some cheap khajur, and I gave 2 sa' of that, and bought 1 sa' of this nice expensive khajur. So Prophet ﷺ said, Ainul riba. Oh, this is pure interest. This is pure interest. He said, Bi'il jam'a bid-darahim thumma ashtari bil jam'i janiban, aw kama qala alayhi salam. The cheap khajur, you sell it for some dirhams, and with that dirham buy the expensive khajur. But don't exchange 2 for 2 sa' for 2 kilos for 1 kilo. So even in where 2 things are same, and one of higher quality, the other is lower quality, if you exchange it, you have to exchange it exact same amount. Whether it's wheat or barley or salt or khajur or gold or silver, they are sold in measure or weight, they have to be equal. If you give extra, then that's called riba al-fadl, and it's not allowed. And riba al-nasi'ah is udhar, credit. When I give you 100 pounds and I take back from you 150 pounds, that's called riba al-nasi'ah. Riba al-nasi'ah was in the pre-Islamic era as well. And Quran talks more about riba al-nasi'ah. That's why it's called riba al-Quran. And Hadith talks about riba al-fadl. That's why it's called riba al-Hadith. So both were in the pre-Islamic era, both are haram. Some people try to confuse and they say that Quran only makes haram riba al-fadl, riba al-nasi'ah is allowed. You see the mentality, twisting how shaitan twists them. They say, well, Quran was talking about riba al-fadl, not about riba al-nasi'ah. But Quran talks about riba al-nasi'ah as well. The whole ruku of Surah Baqarah, الذين يأكلون الربا لا يقومون إلا كما يقوم الذي يتخبطه الشيطان من المس. This is about riba al-nasi'ah, the bank riba. Bank riba is riba al-nasi'ah. So this is why riba interest is haram. We should not take out mortgage. We should not pay mortgage. We should not pay, buy things on HP purchase and credit cards and things like that. You're paying interest and you're being part of that interest system, and you're assisting it, supporting it. That's why it's good. People don't understand this. Many, women, they say, I'm not taking it. I'm only giving it. But this logic you use for everything. For example, you'll play national lottery. You'll buy tickets for 10 pounds. Well, I'm only buying ticket. But the gambling is still haram, my friend. So gambling is haram, interest is haram, cheating is haram, fraud is haram, scams are haram. Anything that is haram is haram. You can't make it halal with your own way. And no matter which sheikh tells you something is haram, definitely.
So, in ajwa, there's grades.
Huh.
Okay, so if I give you ajwa 1 kilo and take another 2 kilos, is that not halal?
No, no.
It's two different items.
But it's kajur.
So
If you give me 2 kilos ajwa and I give you 2 kilos rice or wheat or barley, the jins has changed. Then the jins changes, then you'll be allowed. But if jins is same, it has to be equal in measure or weight.
So is that the same for when you exchange a car? If you buy a car and you not part exchange.
Okay. Car is not something which is sold with weight or measure. You don't weigh the car. You don't measure the car. So where it has to be two conditions. One is same jins, and the other is it has to be either kaili or wazni, sold in measure or in weight. Like these 6 things which Prophet ﷺ mentioned. Okay? चलो आगे बढ़ो हदीस पढ़नी पूरा करना है अब मैं थक गया I'm finishing drained out अब just जल्दी हदीस पढ़ लो और आगे बढ़ो अरे सिर्फ इंग्लिश पढ़ो
I heard Allah's Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam say that every one of you is a guardian and responsible for what is in his custody. The ruler is a guardian of his subjects and responsible for them. A husband is a guardian of his family and is responsible for it. A lady is a guardian of her husband's house and is responsible for it. And a guardian is a guardian of a servant is a guardian of his master's property and is responsible for it. I heard that from Allah's Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and I think that the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam also said a man is a guardian of his father's properties and is responsible for it. So all of you are guardians and responsible for your wards and things under your care.
This chapter is Babun al-Abdu Ra'in fi mali sayyidihi wa la ya'malu illa bi'iznihi. A slave is a guardian of the property of his master and he cannot transact except with his permission. Hazrat Shaykh Yunus Rahmatullah says the aim of Imam Bukhari here is that mal ki nigrani zaruri hai. It is necessary to look after your mal. You have to look after mal, whether it's yours or whether it's someone else's. Now, in the previous eras, there were slaves. Today, there are no slaves, but a laborer is also a slave. You're working for a company, you have a boss over your head, you have to work 9 till 5. So, let's say if he makes you the treasurer, you have to look after the finance of that department, then you have to be amanatdar, trustworthy. You have to look after the property and the mal of your boss. You can't cheat, you can't steal, you can't waste. You have to be very careful in the property and the wealth of your master, your owner, your boss. This is the aim of this hadith. Tell you the hadith is clear, it needs a lot of explanation, but no time, you have to rush. Ji.
Allah Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, whoever takes a false oath so as to take the property of a Muslim illegally will meet Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala while he will be angry with him. Al-Ash'ar said, by Allah, that saying concerned me. I had common land with a Jew, and the Jew later on denied my ownership. So I took him to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, who asked me whether I had a proof of my ownership. When I replied in the negative, the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam asked the Jew to take an oath. I said, oh Allah's Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he will take an oath and deprive me of my property. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala revealed the following verse, verily those who purchase a little gain at the cost of Allah's covenant and their oaths.
Over here, the Kitab al-Istiqraz has come to a close. And next Kitab is Fil Khusumat, with regards to disputes. And in this, Imam Bukhari has brought one bab, Babu ma yuzkaru fil ishkhas wal khusumat bain al-Muslim wal Yahudi. Summoning someone to the court or the qazi is allowed. You have to send summons. By so and so date, you have to arrive, come to the court. So this is permissible in disputes. Also, khusumat bain al-Muslim wal Yahudi, a dispute, an argument between a Muslim and Yahudi, meaning for disputes and cases, both persons' religion does not have to uh, property of a Muslim will meet Allah whilst Allah is really angry on him. This is the hadith. And it was quoted by Abdullah ibn Mas'ud radiallahu anhu, the narrator. Now Ash'ath ibn Qais was there and he said, this hadith was regarding me and a Yahudi, me and another person who had some disputes among ourselves, and he refused that land to give it to me. I took him to the Prophet ﷺ. Prophet ﷺ asked me, you are claiming, do you have any evidence? I said, no, I don't have any evidence. So he said to the other person, he was a Yahudi, he said, take a sum. So I said, Ya Rasulullah, he is a non-Muslim, he's going to take a sum and he's going to run away with my property. And so Prophet ﷺ said, what can I do? This is all I can do. Because you know the rule is, al-bayyinatu ala al-mudda'i wal-yaminu ala man ankar. Providing evidence is upon the claimant. And if he can't provide evidence, then oath and qasam is on the mudda'a alayh, the munkir. So, the mudda'i, the claimant can't say, I'm going to take qasam, is mine. No, you can't take qasam. Qasam is on the munkir, mudda'a alayh. Your duty is to provide evidence. If you provide two reliable witnesses that this thing is yours, then the Qazi will scrutinize the witnesses, look at the whole case, and if he feels that yes, it belongs to you, he'll give it to you. Otherwise, if he finds something wrong in there, then he could ask the other person to take qasam. So if the mudda'a alayhi says, I'm going to take qasam, it's not his, it's mine, and he takes that qasam, then he will be given to him. So the Ash'ath ibn Qais said, I said, Ya Rasulullah, he's a Yahudi, he's going to take qasam and run away with my property. So what can I do? That's all, that's the best. So this word of إِذَنْ يَحْلِفُ وَيَذْهَبُ بِمَالِي is criticizing the opponent. If you see some words of criticism, then that will be masmuh and it will be ignored, is what Imam Bukhari is trying to say. Chaliye, next hadith.
Ka'b radiallahu anh demanding his debt back from Ibn Abi Hadrad radiallahu anh in the mosque, and their voices grew louder till Allah's Messenger sallallahu alayhi wa sallam heard them while he was in his house. He came out to them, raising the curtain of his room, and addressed Ka'b radiallahu anh. O Ka'b, Ka'b replied, "Labbaik, O Allah's Messenger sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Reduce your debt to one half, gesturing with his hand." Ka'b radiallahu anh said, "I have done so, O Allah's Apostle." And that the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam said to Ibn Abi Hadra radiallahu anh, "Get up and repay the debt to him."
Okay, this is also in the same chapter. Kalamul khusum ba'dihim fi ba'd. And over here, irtafa'at aswatuhuma. Their voices were raised. When your voices are raised, you are, shouting, fighting, screaming, accusing one another. So in disputes, these type of things do happen. Sharia, does not disregards them, if you want to use other words. Now this incident between Ka'b ibn Malik and Ibn Abi Hadr. Ka'b ibn Malik had debt on Ibn Abi Hadr. How much was it? Hafiz ibn Hajar said it was 80 dinars. And they were arguing. Prophet ﷺ heard the arguments, so he came out and he gestured to Ka'b from a distance. Half, 50%. Let him off 50%. And Ka'b ibn Malik said, "Qad fa'altu ya Rasulullah. I've let him off. He can give me 40 marks." So Nabi Pak sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, "Qum faqzi, go." Ibn Abi Hadr, even if you don't have it, borrow it from someone, get it from someone, pay him now. You see the matter of Dahim? And he was nice. He let him off 50% only for. Hafiz ibn Hajar Asqalani has also written, that hadith of Laylatul Qadr. Prophet ﷺ came out to inform people of Laylatul Qadr, and two people were arguing he was caused to forget it. Is this argument? Because of this argument, he was caused to forget Laylatul Qadr. You see how arguments have effect on our ruhaniyat and spirituality. Try to avoid all arguments, especially on a Salim and Maslul. Now after this, Imam Bukhari rahmatullahi alayhi has said Babul Mulazama on page 327. When it said if someone owes you money, then you can stick to him. And you can say, I'm not leaving until I get my money back. 24/7. I'm going to go with you wherever you go. In your house, in your bedroom, in your, wherever you go, I'm not going to leave you until I get my money. This is called mulazamat. Mulazamat is allowed. You stick to him. Now the hadith is brought over here. One person had some debt on the Prophet ﷺ. And he came and said, Muhammad, I want my, dain. And Prophet ﷺ said, I don't have anything to pay at the moment. And he said, well, I'm going to stay with you. Prophet ﷺ said, okay. So he sat there. He went for namaz, came back. He sat there. Namaz, came back, sat there. Until next day, 24 hours. The person remained with the Prophet. Prophet ﷺ also remained. Now next day, Sahaba was telling nothing. And Prophet ﷺ realized this. He said, no. In the Saheeh Bukhari Shareef. I will pay you when things come. So the next day, that person said, Ya Rasulullah, he was a Jew. He said, Ya Muhammad, I did not do this to demand for my money. I have seen all the sifat of yours in Torah mentioned in you, but one sifat I wanted to check your patience and your forbearance. I've checked that today as well. Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah wa ashhadu anna Muhammadan Rasulullah. And this is my mal. You can take as much as you want. See the sabr and hilm of the Prophet. This is, al-mulazama over here. And then Babu Taqazi. Imam Bukhari also brought another chapter over here of Taqaza. We pray before Husnul Qaza, beautifully paying. There should be Husnul Taqazi. When you do Taqaza from someone, demand from someone, then demand it in a good way, not in a rude manner. Shall we go on to next list? Kitab al-Mazalim wal-Ghasab. This chapter is about Mazalim and Ghasab. Zulm upon someone and snatching someone's property.
Allah Messenger said, when the believers pass safely over the bridge across hell, they will be stopped at a bridge in between hell and paradise, where they will retaliate upon each other for the injustices done among them in the world. And when they get purified of all their sins, they will be admitted into paradise. By him in whose hands the life of Muhammad is, everybody will recognize his dwelling in paradise better than he recognizes his dwelling in this world.
Mazalim is plural of mazlimatu. Ma yukhadhu min ahadin zulman. Something which is taken from someone by way of injustice is called mazlima. And qisas, taking your back, revenge, taking revenge. This chapter is about qisasul mazalim, taking qisas and revenge for mazalim. Now, either you will pay it back over here or you will pay it back over there. In Maidan Hashar. Now, if it's too much, it's big, huge, then you can't escape Maidan Hashar until you pay back. And what is the currency of Maidan Hashar? No pounds, no dollars, no dinar, no dirham. Hasanat and Sayyat. You pay with your Hasanat. If your Hasanat finish, you take their Sayyat. As in the Hadith of Al-Muflis. Now, there are some things which were not huge, which were minor. Small things, which people even ignore in the dunya. Sometimes like in chimdi didi or something. And agreement didi, but to get the permit, you can masti they tell you, pen padel some pen or something you took from some, borrowed it from someone and forgot to return it. Even though that is huge as well. Abdullah ibn Mubarak once came back to his home and he opened his luggage and he found a pen in there, which he borrowed from someone and forgot to give it back. So he put his saddle back on and traveled the whole distance just to return that pen to that rightful owner. So, but the person would have forgiven him. Only pen, small pen. So sometimes these small things, they were not accounted for in Maidan Hashar, right? The person passed, he got his certificate in the right hand, He crossed Pul Sirat. But after Pul Sirat, there will be another Pul Sirat. This is Allama Kinwani's opinion. And this Jisr is another one. But Qurtubi's opinion is that this is the final phase of the Pul Sirat. This is the ending, the Zunaba of Pul Sirat. So on there, whatever the case, everybody will be stopped. Those who have nothing on them, they will pass swiftly. But those who have these small things and matters, they will be cleared out before they are allowed in Jannah. So they will be said, Allah bhai, maaf kar do. I will get main maaf kar diya. I was okay, I do maafi. Oh, it was nothing. It was small minor. Finished, full stop. So Allah Pak will clear everything out so that you have no grudges left against one another after you go in Jannah. Because only clean-hearted people can go in Jannah. If there is some malice or grudge or something in your heart, you can't go in Jannah. Do you understand? This is the meaning of this hadith. You read the translation, you understood it. What was the last sentence of the hadith? وَالَّذِي نَفْسُ مُحَمَّدٍ بِيَدِهِ لَأَحَدُهُمْ بِمَسْكَنِهِ فِي الْجَنَّةِ أَدَلُّ بِمَسْكَنِهِ كَانَ فِي الدُّنْيَا. You will know your house in Jannah more than your house in this world. If I was to go from here, I wouldn't bargain to somebody else's house. I know where my house is. I will go exactly on that road, drive there, and I have key to my house. I'll go in my own house. I know the way. So in Jannah as well, you will know exactly where your Jannah is. How? How will you know? Hafiz ibn Hajar said, you read Hadith in Kitab al-Janaiz, إِنَّ أَحَدَكُمْ إِذَا مَاتَ عُرِضَ عَلَيْهِ مَقْعَدُهُ بِالْغَدَاةِ وَالْعَشِيِّ. When you die, then in your qabr, your Jannah is shown to you every morning and evening. This is your Jannah. Where your Jannah is.
Allah will fulfill his needs. Whoever brought his Muslim brother out of a discomfort, Allah will bring him out of the discomforts of the day of resurrection. And whoever screened a Muslim, Allah will screen him on the day of resurrection.
This is Babun la yadhlimul Muslimul Muslima wa la yuslimuhu. A Muslim should not oppress another Muslim and he should not hand him over to the enemy. Hadith is beautiful hadith. Al-Muslim akhul Muslim la yadhlimuhu wa la yuslimuhu. We've explained that. And भाई उसको बंद कर दो फिर यहाँ से गर्म हवा आती है. Just बस हो गया. But this is to say, in Kitabul Khusumat and Kitabul Duyun, if you take someone's money, borrow from someone, and you don't pay it back, then that's zulm. So don't do zulm. A Muslim should not do zulm on a Muslim. Be nice, kind, fair, just with everyone. Chaliye.
Allah Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, help your brother whether he's an oppressor or he is an oppressed one. People asked, O Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam, it is all right to help him if he is oppressed, but how should we help him if he's an oppressor? The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, by preventing him from oppressing others.
Unsur akhaka zaliman aw mazluma. Help your brother, meaning Muslim brother, whether he is zalim or whether he is mazloom. They said, Ya Rasulullah, we help our brother if he is mazloom. How about when he is zalim? He said, hold on to his hands and stop him from zulm. Now this phrase, unsur akhaka zaliman aw mazluma, Hafiz ibn Hajar al-Asqalani rahmatullah said it was first used by Jundub ibn al-Ambar in Jahiliyyah. And that was for racism. He was a racist. He used it as a racist remark that if someone is from our Qabila and tribe, we should help him, whether he is zalim or whether he is Muslim. He is ours. Nabi Kareem sallallahu alaihi wasallam used the same phrase, but he changed the meaning. He said, Unsur akhaka zaliman aw mazluma. Sahabi said, how can we help him when he is zalim? Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, hold on to his hand. Stop him from zulm. Now, this can be zulm of individual, zulm of, let's say, in your household, your mother is being extremely harsh and rude to your wife. Saas bahu problems, and you know that your mother is being wrong, then respectfully say to her, Mom, no, please don't do this. Stop it. You have to stop her from zulm. Or whether the zulm is, let's say, from community. If the community, you are a member of the masjid committee trust and they are doing some zulm on someone, so you have to raise your voice and say, this is wrong, shouldn't be done. Whether the zulm is from the government, president, prime ministers, then you should do whatever you can, write letters to them and say, this is wrong, prime minister, sir, please don't do this. So help in whatever you can stop the zulm in however way you can. Chaliye.
I heard Al-Bara ibn Azib radiallahu anhu saying, Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam ordered us to do 7 things and prohibited us from doing 7 other things. Then Al-Bara radiallahu anhu mentioned the following: to pay a visit to the sick, to follow funeral processions, to say to a sneezer, may Allah be merciful to you, to return greetings, to help the oppressed, to accept invitations, to help others to fulfill their oaths.
This is in Babu Nasr al-Mazlum, helping a Mazlum. If someone is Mazlum, then you have to help him. Right? This is Prophet ﷺ said, Amarana bi sab'in wa nahana an sab'in, and in there is Nasrul Mazlum. Sometimes we know someone is Mazlum, we don't help him. Once some white boys were running after an Asian man on Derby Street near Sunny Hill School, and there were some youngsters standing at cola shop, and they were looking. Now they are looking there, and they pinned him down, they kicked him, punched him, and then they left. Now these boys, after the white men went, they come to him, are you okay? You have to call an ambulance for you. When he needed the help, you kept just observing and looking. You should have gone to help him. And the first thing that when he was being beaten up. So if someone someone is Mazlum, you should go and help him. Remove that zulm. This is what the hadith is trying to say. Chaliye.
Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, oppression will be a darkness on the day of resurrection.
Az-zulmu zulumatun yawm al-qiyamah. Zulm will be a cause of zulumat on the day of Qiyamah. Hazrat Sheikh Yunus rahmatullahi alayhi said, zulm दिल की जुल्मत की वजह से होता है. जब इंसान का दिल तारीक हो जाता है और अल्लाह के अहकाम का इस्तेहज़ार नहीं रहता, तब इंसान जुल्म करता है. और जालिम बैक वक्त 2 गुनाह करता है. एक अहकाम खुदाबंदी का तोड़ना और 2 हुकूकुल इबाद को ज़ाया करना. You understand? Or you have to translate it? जुल्म दिल की जुल्मत की वजह से होता है. Zulm is due to the zulmat and darkness of the heart. इंसान का दिल जब तारीक हो जाता है, अल्लाह के अहकाम का इस्तेहज़ार नहीं रहता, तब इंसान जुल्म करता है. When the heart becomes dark and the person doesn't keep in mind the ahkam of Allah, that is when he does zulm. Because he is oblivious to Allah's ahkam. His heart is dark, his heart is black, pitch black. There's sins upon sins upon sins, and his heart is filled with fisq and fujur. So now he goes into a rage and rebellion and zulm and oppression and tyranny and injustice. So zulm is because of the zulmat of the heart. And then he said that a zalim does two sins at once. Number one, he breaks Allah's commands, and number two, he violates huququl ibad. This is why his zulm will come on the day of Qiyamah in the form of zulumat and darknesses. Zulumatun ba'duha fawqa ba'd. On the day of Qiyamah, there will be instances when we will need nur and light to guide us. Especially at the time of crossing Pul Sirat. There will be darkness because Jahannam's fire is black, thick black smoke. So when we arrive to cross the Pul Sirat, there will be darkness upon darkness. And we will need nur. We will walk in that nur which Allah provides for us due to the good deeds we have done. So at that time, the zalim will be stuck in that black, pitch black darkness, and he will fall into the pits of Jahannam, unable to cross the Pul Sirat. This is the meaning of az-zulmu zulumatun yawmal qiyamah. Zulm will be a cause for darknesses on the day of Qiyamah. Chaliye.
The Prophet ﷺ said Mu'adh radiallahu anhu to Yemen and said, be afraid from the curse of the oppressed, as there is no screen between his invocation and Allah.
Al-ittiqa'u wal-hadar min da'wat al-mazlum. This is ajeeb, hai bhai. Mazlum's bad dua, highly effective. You do zulm on someone and the person is hurt, really hurt, and he says, oh Allah, please help me, I have no one to turn to. Then that dua reaches the arsh of Allah. And Allah's wrath falls upon the zalim. So stay well away from the bad dua of a Muslim. Don't do zulm on anyone. So nobody does bad dua for you. This is ittaqi da'wat al-mazlum فَإِنَّهُ لَيْسَ بَيْنَهَا وَبَيْنَ اللَّهِ حِجَابٌ. No curtain and screen between that bad dua of a Muslim and between Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Many stories can be mentioned over here where a Muslim, Mufti Farooq Mirti Sahib Rahmatullah Alayhi came here. I mentioned this incident. This young student used to study in madrasa. So one morning, he went fishing and he caught a very nice big fish. And he was happy, he was bringing it, mashallah, this is nice fish. I will, cut it and mashallah, make some nice meal with it today. There was one dada who used to live in that neighborhood, and everybody was scared of him. So he saw the young student, Talib Ilam, bring that fish. He felt greedy. He said, I should have that fish. He said, give me that fish. He said, no, I won't have that. I caught it. He said, give me the fish. He said, no, so he punched him, beat him up, and he took the fish away from him. The student started crying. He brought the fish home and he said to his wife, what a nice fish. You put the stove on, masala, I'll cut it. So while he went to cut it, when only one bone, kata, it stuck accidentally in his finger. He pulled the kata out and then he made the pieces and gave it to the wife. And they ate the fish. But at night he got severe pain in that finger. He was hurting a lot. So he put some medicine, whatever, didn't, no avail. Next morning he went to the doctor, and doctor also did what he couldn't. Then the infection. There was infection in there. So he started increasing, and the doctor said, we'll have to cut your finger. They cut the finger, but he started increasing. Doctor said, you'll have to cut your hands. So the doctor said, why is this happening? And he's in terrible state. He doesn't know why. So he had to chop his hand off. And the infection was going up. So someone told him, your whole body is going to be chopped off like this. Think of something. Have you done something wrong? Did you do something? And he said, yeah, that student. It was that fish. After that, all this started. He said, go and ask for maafi from that student. So he went to the madrasa. And they called the Motim. The Motim said, oh, Dada, how can I help you? He said, look at my hand, what happened to it? One of your students. So he said, do you know which students? Yeah, I might be able to recognize him. So he called all the students, said, this student. So the Motim called the student and says to him, भाई तुम्हारे मच्छी ली थी कहाँ मेरी मच्छी ली तो अब गलती हो गई थी माफ कर दो इसको मैंने माफ करूंगा. I'm not going to give him money. And what he said, "Bhai, maaf kar do." And the student said, ever since he beat me up and took that fish, every time I go in sajda, I remember him and I curse him. So Mu'tamin said, "Bhai, you forgive him, Allah will forgive you. Look at his hand, have pity on him." So the student said, "Okay, I forgive him." Then that infection stopped. This is ittaqi da'wat al-mazloom. Stay away from the bad-du'a of a mazloom. Don't do zulm on anyone. If the bad-du'a and curse gets to you, you will be destroyed. Chaliye.
Allah's Messenger ﷺ said, whoever has oppressed another person concerning his reputation or anything else, he should beg him to forgive him before the day of resurrection, when there will be no money to compensate for wrong deeds. But if he has good deeds, those good deeds will be taken from him according to his oppression which he has done. And if he has no good deeds, the sins of the oppressed person will be loaded on him.
The hadith is self-explanatory. If you have some mazlimah with anyone, you have caused anything, done anything wrong to them with regards to their honor, or with regards to wealth or property or anything, then فَلْيَتَحَلَّلْهُ مِنْهُ. Beg for forgiveness from them. Make yourself halal and free from them today while you are still alive. Before the time comes where there is no dinar and dirham, if you have amal salihah, it will be given according to the muslimah. If you don't have hasanah, then their sayyat will be loaded on you and you will go into Jahannam. May Allah protect us. So if you owe someone something, pay it off now. Any debt. Even if you owe, let's say you took some mortgage from bank, you have to pay it back. It's not that it's bank's mortgage yaad chal jayega. No, you have to pay it off because you will be asked for it. The creditor, whether he is Muslim or non-Muslim, whether he is an individual or a company, you will be questioned about it on the day of Qiyamah, whoever the creditor is. You took that debt, you should have paid it off. Even his bank's debt, you have to, even if you bought something from someone, you've not paid for it, you have to pay for it. And you have to keep your accounts clear, keep your records clear, don't keep anything on your shoulders. Prophet
ﷺ said, whoever takes a piece of the
who argues in batil, whilst he knows that this is batil and wrong, but he's still arguing and persistent on his argument, then this is wrong. And the hadith quoted over here is clear. Let me quote another hadith from Ibn Majah. When the Prophet ﷺ said, "Man taraka al-mira'a wa huwa batilun, buniya lahu baytun fi rabad al-jannah. Wa man taraka al-mira'a wa huwa muhiqqun, buniya lahu baytun fi wasat al-jannah. Wa man hassana khuluqahu, buniya lahu fi a'laha." Aw kama qala alayhi salam. Whosoever leaves argument while he was wrong, but he left it. He knew he was wrong. He realized his mistake. And he apologized. Sorry, it was my mistake. Allah will construct a palace for him in the courtyard of Jannah. Rabat, outskirts. And وَمَنْ تَرَكَ الْمِرَاءَ وَهُوَ مُحِقٌّ. He left argument whilst he was on haqq. But he still said, "Bhai, chhodo yaar, what in other lakega?" Okay, I give it to you. It's yours. I don't want it. Then Allah will construct a palace for him in the middle of Jannah. And then he said, "Man hassana khuluqahu, buniya lahu fi a'la." Whosoever beautifies his characters, Allah will construct a palace in the highest part of Jannah. What do hassana khuluqahu mean? He doesn't argue. You know what Dr. Zakaria said yesterday? Abdullah ibn Mubarak was asked, "What is husn khuluq?" And he said, "Avoid anger." So avoiding anger is husn akhlaq. And over here, Prophet ﷺ said the same thing. This is what Imam Bukhari mentioned in the Bab. If man khasama fi batilin wa huwa ya'lamuhu. If a person persists on his argument whilst he is wrong, then he is sinful. Avoid that. Now, the hadith over here is also a beautiful hadith. Prophet ﷺ said, "Innama ana basharun." What did he say? "Innama ana basharun," meaning I'm not an angel, I'm not a nur, I'm a human being. فَلَعَلَّ بَعْضَكُمْ أَنْ يَكُونَ أَلْحَنَ بِحُجَّتِهِ مِنْ بَعْضٍ. Some of you might be more eloquent in their argument than others. You know, some people speak very eloquently. And they provide their arguments in such a way that you might have to say. He's telling the truth. And the other person he doesn't know how to speak, even though he's all right. But this person with a lot of is wrong, but he put his argument in such an eloquent way that I thought that he's telling the truth, and I decided in his favor. Prophet ﷺ said, "Even I decided in your favor, but you know you're wrong, then don't take that thing which I decide for you. If it's his and you know deep down your heart that it's his, give it to him. Because I'm only giving you a piece of the fire of Jahannam. I'm not giving you something good. I'm a human being. I judge according to the evidences and the proofs and the arguments which are provided to me." So in khusumat as well, if you're on the haqq, then you should provide your argument properly. If you're on the batil, you should leave the argument. You know, Mamaji, Barrister Sahab, I used to, I go with him for a case of Darul some time ago with some builder or something. So once we were going in the car, I said, "Mamaji, we'll go a long journey ahead." So I said, "Can you tell me some of your stories?" And he said, "Yeah, I was a barrister in Swaziland. And black people, colored people used to come to me with cases, and I used to help them a lot for free." So he said, once this colored lady, she came to me and she said, "Yusuf, please help me. I'm going into trouble. I went to a shoe shop and to buy some shoes for my children, and there was someone's purse. I stole the purse and ran off, but I was caught at the door. So I got a case on such and such a date. So please help me." I said, "No, I'm not going to help you. Keep coming to me." "No." I said, "Please, only once. Please, once more. I won't do it again. Help me." I said, "All right, come to me before the date of the case." So she came before the date of the case, and Ahmadi sat down, and he thought of something, and then he, taught her that this is what you should say. You should say that, I went to the town center with my sister, and we went to this shoe shop, and when we left the shop, and when we walked a little further, my sister said, oh, I forgot my handbag. And she was very fat, she couldn't run. I was thin. So I said, where in the shoe shop? Here. So I ran to the shoe shop, I looked around, I thought that was my sister's bag. And I took it and I was running away. I thought it was my sister, I didn't know it was hers. And she said, this is the court, she won the case. So this is al-hana bi-hujjatihi min ba'din. Sometimes you express your argument in a better way than the other person and you win your argument. So Prophet ﷺ said, don't try to cheat me. I'm still a human being. I decide according to what I hear. So, be careful in your matters and disputes. Chalo jaldi pura kar lo. 3 hadith rahe.
Prophet ﷺ said, whoever has the following 4 characteristics, he will be a hypocrite. Whoever has one of the following 4 characteristics, he has one characteristic of hypocrisy. And he gives it up. These are whenever he talks, he tells a lie. Whenever he makes promise, he breaks it. Whenever he makes a covenant, he proves treacherous. And whenever he quarrels, he behaves impudently in an evil, insulting manner.
This is babun ithmi, babun ila khasama fajara. When a person is in dispute, he behaves impudently. Fajara, fujur means to exceed limits. In his khusumat, he's so staunch in argument that he's always arguing. Prophet ﷺ said, this is a sign of nifaq. A munafiq is very staunch in his arguments. 4 characteristics of a hypocrite. One is when he talks, he tells a lie. When he makes a promise, he breaks. And when he makes a covenant, he proves treacherous. When he quarrels, he behaves impudently in an evil, insulting manner. And this is clear. It needs a bit more explanation. You'll have to study Mishkat Shareef with us, inshallah. Then we'll give you more explanation. In Babul Kabair wa Alamat al-Nifaq.
While the Prophet ﷺ was with one of his wives, one of the mothers of the believers, set a wooden bowl containing food with a servant. The wife stroked the bowl with her hand and broke it. The Prophet ﷺ collected the shattered pieces and put the food back in it and said, eat. He kept the servant and the bowl till he had eaten the food. Then the Prophet ﷺ gave an unbroken bowl to the servant and kept the broken one.
This is chapter ila kasara qas'atan aw shay'an li ghayrihi. If you break someone's bowl or something else, then you should replace it. Because this is also injustice. So Imam Bukhari brings the hadith where Prophet ﷺ was in the house of one of the mothers of believers like Aisha radiallahu anha, and she had cooked food for him. But the other Ummul Mu'mineen, for example, Hazrat Safiya radiallahu anha, had also cooked some food and she sent a bowl of that food with the khadim that take it to the house of the Prophet ﷺ. He could eat this as well. So Hazrat Aisha came into a Joseph. मैं खावा रही हूँ ठीक है वो कलर होता हूँ मैंने पकाया तो उसको बेचने का क्या कारण उसके हाथ से थप्पड़ मारा तो प्याला गिर गया and it broke. So Prophet ﷺ rushed and he put the bowl 2 pieces together and he put the food back in and he kept the food there and he told the khadim attendant, you just wait. And he ate the food, finished the food. He said, Gharat ummukum, your mother got ghayrat. That's why she did this. And then he kept that broken bowl and gave that another bowl which was salib to the person to take it to the other Mu'min. So if you break something, you should replace it. This is what Bukhari is trying to say. Otherwise, you'll be asked for it on the day of Qiyamah. Let's say if you're driving and you cause some damage and nobody knows, you shouldn't run off. You should stop and find the person or leave a note with your number that I'm sorry, this happened. You called me in this number, I'll pay you for the repairs. So if you damage something, you should pay for it and you should not, ignore it. This is what the hadith is trying to say. Chaliye? Final hadith now.
Allah Messenger sallallahu alayhi wa sallam said there was a man called Jurayj while he was praying. His mother prayed and called him, but he did not respond to her call. He said to himself whether he should continue the prayer or reply to his mother. She came to him the second time and called him and said, "Oh Allah, do not let him die until he sees the faces of prostitutes." Jurayj used to live in a hermitage. A woman said that she would entice Jurayj. So she went to him and presented herself, but he refused. She then went to a shepherd and allowed him to commit illegal sexual intercourse with her, and later she gave birth to a boy. She alleged that the baby was from Jurayj. The people went to Jurayj and broke down his hermitage. pulled him out of it and abused him. He performed ablution and offered the prayer. Then he went to the male baby and asked him, "Oh boy, who is your father?" The baby replied that his father was a shepherd. The people said that they would build for him a hermitage of gold, but Junayd asked him to make it of mud only.
The chapter Imam Bukhari conducted over here is إِذَا هَدَمُ حَائِطًا فَلْيَبْنِ مِثْلَهُ. If you demolish, destroy someone's wall, then you should build a similar wall to it. And any other property, then you should replace it, make it as it was, and that's it, done. Then you won't be asked for it on the day of Qiyamah. Because you replaced it, you repaired it in the best of your ability. The hadith brought forward is a pious person from Bani Israel. Bani Israel also had good people. So we talk about the good people. So this was a rahib, a monk. His name was Jurej. Sheikh Yunus Sahib said, ये जुरेज वही है जिसको अंग्रेजी में जॉर्ज कहते हैं, सेंट जॉर्ज. तो ये सेंट जॉर्ज थे. So Jurej was worshipping in his Suma. Suma is translated as hermitage. In his monastery, in his secluded area, is a small hut on a hill for worshipping, to stay away from the people and worship on that hill. So his mother approached him for some reason. Now Junaid Sahib was praying namaz. His mother called out, "Junaid!" And he said, "Oh, to his heart, in his heart, my mom's calling me. Should I go to her or should I keep on praying? Should I go to her? Should I go to her?" He said, "No, she always keeps pestering me. Let me just keep praying." So he just continued with his prayers. So she went. After a while, she came again. And she said, "Junaid." But again, he said, "Oh, she's always calling me over, some boy when they're playing games." And mom said, "Muhammad, come here." She said, "Mom's always pestering me." You shouldn't do that. If your mother calls you, you should run immediately. Listen to her. Now he again did not finish it. He could have finished his namaz or broken his namaz, because if you're praying namaz, nafil namaz, and your parents call you, you should break your nafil namaz and attend. This is how important the haqq of parents is. So he continued praying. Now this time his mother was frustrated, angry, and she said, "Allahumma la tumithu hatta turiyahu wujuh al-mumisat." Don't let him die until he sees the face of a prostitute. So mother's dua accepted. Good job she didn't say until he does zina. She only said until he sees the face of a zaniya, prostitute. Now, as Junaid was praying, and this bad woman comes, and she wants Junaid to sleep with her. So she takes off her clothes and then she dances around him, and she wants to seduce him. But Junaid just closes his eyes and doesn't pay any attention. So she gets frustrated. She comes down with the shepherd, and she sleeps with the shepherd. She falls pregnant. She hides the pregnancy. She delivers the baby. People ask, "Oh, you know where did you get the baby from?" And she said, "It's Junaid's baby." People say, "Junaid? He pretends to be such a big Sufi, and his Kufi is committing zina." So they took their pickaxes and whatever, and they climbed on the hill and they broke his whole, everything down. And Junaid said, "Oh, bhai, what's going on? What's going on? Hey, what's going on? You don't know what you're doing." So what's going on? "This child is yours. You do zina. You stay here, show us that you're worshipping. We feed you, we give you food and drink and everything for free, and you're doing this." He said, "I didn't do any zina. This woman said you did zina with her. I didn't do zina." So call that woman with the child. And meanwhile, they call him, he does wuzu, he prays 2 rakats namaz. And then when the woman comes with the child, he doesn't ask the woman, he asks the child. It was a newborn baby. Say, "Hey, who's your father?" And the child said, "My father is the shepherd." And people, "Oh, he's a big buzruk, yaar. Sorry, yaar. We'll make your, ibadat khana from gold." And Junaid said, No, I don't want to make it gold. Just make it how it's worth. And this is the aqidat of awam, general public. If they get aqidat man with you, then take you high above the heavens. And if their aqidat and their admiration of you fails, then they'll bend you deep down into the earth. So we shouldn't fall for the flattery of people. Just stay on that same level where you are. And this is in Babul Mazalim, that even in Mazalim, if you break someone's property, you must replace it. Now, these are 40 hadiths. We started off with Kitabul Buyur, and we moved on to Hawala, Kafala, Wakala, and we moved on to Istiqraz and Adawul Duyun, Hajr Taflis, and then we moved on to these subjects of Mazalim and Ghasab and these types. Alhamdulillah, we covered a good, compilation. If I had time, I would have, read something to you about these finances, but I think we are running out of time. But because आप भी थक गए हैं, मैं भी थक गया हूँ. ये एक वेबसाइट है, इस पर बहुत अच्छा लिखा है. What is Islamic finance? How it works? There's a little bit of, I'll just give a little bit from there. Central to Islamic finance is the fact that money itself has no intrinsic value. As a matter of faith, a Muslim cannot lend money to or receive money from someone and expect to benefit from it. Interest, known as riba, is not allowed. To make money from money is forbidden. Wealth can only be generated through legitimate trade and investment in assets. Money must be used in a productive way in order to be a Sharia compliant. Money must be used in a productive way. Then there is another side which explains some principles of Islamic faith. Number one, there are some prohibitions, etc. Number one, paying or charging interest. We understand that. According to Islam, interest, usually riba, is strictly prohibited. Number two, investing in businesses involved in prohibited activities, such as producing and selling alcohol or pork, are prohibited in Islam. You can't invest in these businesses. The activities are considered haram or forbidden. Therefore, investing in such activities is likewise forbidden. Number three, speculation, maisir. Sharia strictly prohibits any form of speculation or gambling, which is called maisir. Thus, Islamic financial institutions cannot be involved in contracts where the ownership of goods depends on an uncertain event in the future. You following? I'm not reading too fast, am I? If I do, then ask me. Number four, uncertainty and risk, which is called gharar. The rules of Islamic finance ban participation in contracts with excessive risk and or uncertainty. The term gharar measures the legitimacy of risk or uncertainty in investment. Gharar is observed with derivative contracts and short sellings, which are forbidden in Islamic finance. There is too much gharar in Dubai. People take money from here for investment, and they invest it, and after this, sometimes they say, well, no profit, and we've lost all the money. Someone was, Hazrat Maulana Bilal was saying the other day that he met someone in London, and he said his friend asked him to invest 100 million in Dubai. So he asked, what is my security? And the friend said, I am your security, trust me. He trusted him and gave 1 million and finished. It's gone bust. The whole company and where he was investing, everything got bust. He lost 100 million pounds. So when there is gharar, high risk, then you should avoid those types of investments. In addition to the above prohibitions, Islamic finance is based on two crucial principles. One, material finality of the transaction, meaning each transaction must be related to a real underlying economic transaction. Two, profit loss sharing, meaning parties entering into the contract in Islamic finance share profit and loss and risks associated with the transaction. No one can benefit from the transaction more than the other party. Types of financing arrangements. Number one, profit and loss sharing partnership, which is called mudaraba. What's it called? Mudaraba. Mudaraba is a profit and loss sharing partnership agreement where one partner, meaning financier or Rabbul Mal, provides the capital to another partner, meaning labor provider or mudarib, who is responsible for the management and investment of the capital. The profits are shared between the parties according to a pre-agreed ratio. So let's say Liaquat Bhai is loaded and he gives £5 million to Maulana Abdul Raqib Sir to invest, and he works, and their profit ratio is, let's say, 50-50. Now at the end of the mudarabat, whatever business the money was invested in, after 5 years, 10 years, according to their agreement, that business will be sold off. Throughout the 10 years, they enjoy the profits, both of them 50-50. Now the business is sold off, and the Rabbul Mal will be given his money back. And if there was any profit, that will be shared, he will get his money back. And if there is nothing left, or the Mal was gone, then the Rabbul Mal will get nothing. This is called Mudarabat. Second is Musharaka, profit and loss sharing joint venture. A form of joint venture where all partners contribute capital, meaning Liaquat Bhai puts in the pot 50,000, Abdul Raqib puts 50,000, total 100,000. They're both partners and they both work company, they both work 9 till 5, and they both have equal rights into the running of the business. This is called Musharaka. So first was Mudaraba, one person's money and other person's effort. This is good. If you have money, you should do this. You know, like the apprenticeship, क्या नाम है उसका, वो आता है ना, sugar, Mr. Sugar. तो वो बनाता है, पैसे देता है. आप young man है, you got ideas, you got business, go take this much and do business and we'll share profits. So this is called Mudaraba. And Musharaka is where you both put money in and you share the profits and losses. The major types of these joint ventures are diminishing partnership, permanent musharaka, and is explained here. Number 3, mudarabat, musharakat, and ijara, leasing. In this type of financing arrangement, the lessor, who must own the property, leases the property to the lessee in exchange for a stream of rental and purchase payments, ending with the transfer of property ownership with the lessee. Again, investment vehicles, equities, fixed income instruments, and these things are explained. But I think this explains a little bit how money is invested and how Islam wants us to invest money. If you want to buy shares in a property, what you need to know is when you buy shares, then you are owner of that much of the property, even if it's little bit. So whatever you can own, you can buy shares in there. Whatever you can't own, you can't buy shares in there, right? So let's say brewery, Carlsberg, you can't own Daru, Sharab, so you can't buy shares in Carlsberg, no matter how profitable they may seem. On the other hand, what you can own, like clothing company, right? Clothing company, क्या नाम clothing company का नाम लो, Next, dealing in clothes only. So you want to buy shares in Next or Debenhams or other clothing, you can buy them. And British Gas, electrics, you can buy shares. Rail networks, you can buy shares in there because you become owner of it according to that amount. Where there is a mix-up, then we will say this is the gray area, avoid it. Like we explained, Manchester United share, even if they are winning the Premier League and their shares have gone up, but still you can't buy it. So avoid it. So this is the matter with regards to finance and buying shares. Little bit of masail here and there. Ibrahim sahab, any other masail remind me? Jaldi bolne hain, finish karna hai. Enough ho gaya. Aur kuch kisi ko puchna hai. When we talked about the student loan, when my friend Rizwan asked me about student loan, I said, where there's a will, there's a way. If you have the will to avoid student loan, you can avoid it. Many parents are rich, they're millionaires, but still force their son to get student loan. You're getting it for free, take it. When you've got money, help your son. Such children should refuse, I'm not studying. I don't want to get involved in interest. Don't study. Study is not first. 5 time namaz first. Study is not first. And if you really want to study, then take private loan, like from family members.
Then a book on it, different options.
Maulana Ibrahim Musa has written a book on it with different options in there. Read that book. But remember the thing, where there's a will, there's a way. If you want to get out of it, avoid it, you can avoid it. It's just that people don't want to avoid it and they want to just remain loose and do things the way they want to do it. Okay? Any questions before we make final dua? Maulana Ibrahim Sahib, any questions? Jazakallah to Maulana Ibrahim Sahib for his patience and for every one of you as well. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make this course beneficial for all of us. I hope you all learn something from the course, take something from here. Imam Muhammad ibn Hassan al-Shaybani rahmatullahi was asked that Imam Muhammad, you've written lots of books but you haven't written anything on tasawwuf. And Imam Muhammad said, I've written Kitabul Buyur, it's a book of tasawwuf. Tasawwuf means purifying your inner self to get to Allah, to connect yourself to Allah. If your dealings are clean and pure, you will be connected to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So you read Kitabul Buyur and learn properly and do your transactions properly, do the halal thing, avoid the haram thing, and you will reach Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You remember that hadith? وَطْعَمُهُ حَرَامٌ وَمَشْرَبُهُ حَرَامٌ وَمَلْبَسُهُ حَرَامٌ فَأَنَّى يُسْتَجَابُ لِذَلِكَ. A traveler who's disheveled in hair, whose clothes are covered in dust, he's in a pitiful state, Ya Rab, Ya Rab, Ya Rab, Ya Rab. But his clothing are haram, his food is haram, his sharbat and drink is haram. How can his dua be accepted? So, if we earn halal, eat halal, drink halal, our duas will be accepted as well. The halal has a huge effect on your heart. This Ramzan, in the last Ashura, for a few days we touched on this subject topic, if you remember, about halal. And there are many bayans on this in the Ramzan talks. You can go on our website and listen to them. So halal is extremely important. May Allah give us the ability to understand the importance of it. ठीक है जी, दुरूद शरीफ पढ़ लो दुआ करो. Subhanallah. نشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت نستغفرك ونتوب إليك. اللهم لك الحمد ولك الشكر. اللهم لا نحصي ثناء عليك أنت كما أثنيت على نفسك. اللهم صل على سيدنا محمد النبي الأمي وعلى آله وأصحابه وسلم تسليما. اللهم انفعنا بما علمتنا وعلمنا ما ينفعنا وزدنا علما. اللهم إنا نسألك علما نافعا وعملا صالحا ورزقا واسعا وشفاء من كل داء. اللهم ارزقنا من رزقك الحلال الطيب المبارك ما تصون به وجوهنا عن التعرض إلى أحد من خلقه، وجنبنا اللهم الحرام حيث كان وأين كان وعندما كان، واحلل بيننا وبينه وبين أهله واقبض عنا أيديهم واصرف عنا قلوبهم حتى لا نتقلب إلا فيما يرضيك ولا نستعين بنعمتك إلا على ما تحب. Ya Rahman Rahim, accept our sitting over here. Give us proper knowledge of deen. Give us a proper understanding of halal, haram. Give us the ability to avoid interest and riba and all these transactions and credit cards and mortgages and loans. And Allah, protect our wealth. Give us the ability to earn our wealth properly and to spend it properly, and protect us from fuzul kharchi and extravagance, and to spend our money in sadaqah, khairat, and prepare for our akhirat, and protect us from making the dunya our goal and forgetting our akhirat. Allow us to remember the akhirat, remember you, remember your prophet, and to abide by your instructions and commands. Keep us all steadfast on Sirat al-Mustaqim. ربنا تقبل منا إنك أنت السميع العليم وتب علينا إنك أنت التواب الرحيم. صلى الله وسلم على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه. Okay, भाई थोड़ी देर सो जाओ सब आराम करो. फिर चाय 24 आवर है. चाय भाई पी लो.